Hey, I did receive a call from tech support at Thor. I will not tell you the woman's name to protect the innocent. I explained to her what was going on, and I told her about the fuses and all of that. So she said it sounds like the controller for the bed is bad, and you need to find it and see if it's giving you an error code. I asked her where it was. She explained that near the bed there should be a little access panel. You can take it off. The controller should be in there. While on the phone with her for over an hour, I searched all over the front of the rig. I took out light switch covers. I took out bed control covers. I fished wires out of walls, and there was no controller. She then said, "All right, let me look into this, find out where it is, and I'll call you back." About an hour or two later, she called back and she said, "That rig does not have a bed controller." So I shook my head. Period. So she said that it sounds like there's a bad relay. There is a relay that operates both the awning and the bed, the motor on the bed to get it up and down. That's what I've been talking about. And so she said, go into the bed, find that one that has these wires that are going to it. I think there were two red wires. So I went under the bed. I found the relays. I also found 3 other relays. And so I sent her an email. I said, I think this is the one you had told me it was 2 large or 2 green wires going to it. So I took a picture, I emailed it to her, and she said, yes, that's the culprit. Period. I then called a local RV shop. Actually, before that, I went on Amazon. I found the relay. It was going to be $10, and it would take 3 days to get here. So I called a local RV shop, and he said, none of our distributors have that relay in stock. They're all on back order. He said, but I did find one on Amazon, and I can send you the link to it, and you'll be better off just ordering it from them. This is Alpenhaus in Port Jervis, New York, and for an RV repair shop to direct me to Amazon for a part, I think that's phenomenal when they couldn't get it themselves. So kudos to you guys. Alpenhaus, Port Jervis, New York. So I ordered it a few days later. The relay came. I ran as fast as I could. I took out the old relay. I plugged in the new relay, and nothing. Nothing changed. I said, I wonder if it's one of these other relays under here. So I then ensured that the other relays were the same as this one, and 2 were. So I took out those 2, and I put in the new one, and nothing. So I sent an email back to the woman that was helping me. Now, all of this took, I don't know, 7 or 8 days, or more, to transpire, because we had gone from that first phone call, then everything after that was through email. And I explained to her, I'd rather that you call me so I can sit there and test something while you're on the phone. And she said, no, it's much better to do it through email. In this way, we can communicate and you can send me pictures. Period. Dot. So we continued this email conversation. She then said that I should check a fuse that was underneath the dash, and she gave me the fuse number, and that's the one for the step controller. But I tested that one anyway, and it was fine, and I had already tested it, and I told her that, and I'll just leave that alone. So that email that I sent to her was on a Friday, and that was after 8 days of this with Thor, trying to fix this problem. The weekend came and went. Day 9, day 10. On day 11, this past Monday, she emailed me and she said, I don't know what's wrong. You must have a bad wire somewhere. Good luck, and I'm done here, was basically what she said. And I read the email, I shook my head, and I said, that's it? Unreal. So we thought about bringing the rig over to Alpenhaus in Port Jervis, and we've never brought the rig to a shop for service, so we didn't really want to do that. Our next thought was to bring it out to Thor in Indiana. We've been there 3 times with issues. We've walked in with headaches and walked out with headaches each and every time. So we knew we really didn't want to do that. So what I then did was I called our local service repair guy, and George Fry in the Hudson Valley. If you listen to my previous episodes, especially early on, like the first 5 or 6 episodes maybe, or first couple even, I mentioned George's name a few times. So George is a mobile tech guy for RVs here in the Hudson Valley. Originally, he helped us diagnose a problem with our solenoid that was operating our BCC, the Battery Control Center, on our first rig. He came out, he ran some diagnostic tests at that time. He diagnosed the problem. He said, when are you guys leaving for Montana? So this is 4 years ago or so. And we said, in 3 days. He said, I don't want to start tearing this thing apart. If I take out that BCC, who knows what Thor's been throwing in or has thrown in there, and what's going to fall out and what's going to disconnect. He said, if you were going to be here for a while, I'd be more than happy to do it. But if you guys are leaving in a few days and the rig is operational, why don't you head out to Thor, make an appointment, and go out to Thor. So that was our first experience with George. He did not charge us for that visit because he said he didn't do anything. He had been there an hour. We had him at the house previously when we first got our first rig and our house batteries kept dying. He explained about being hooked up to shore power to trickle charge the batteries, which I didn't know. And then he spent an hour going over the rig with me, showing me different fuses, switches that I had no idea where they were, what they controlled. And when he was leaving, he did not charge me a service call. So again, I gave him a nice tip. What a nice guy George Fry is. Anyway, so I called George. I explained to him what the problem was. He said I could probably get there this afternoon. I was shocked. I know everybody's so busy repairing RVs. He said he'll call me and let me know later on. So I guess about 2 hours later, he said, yep, I'll be there in 40 minutes. He was there in a half hour. He then came into the rig. I explained to him what was going on. He looked at the relay that the Thor tech said was the problem originally, and he said, that ain't the relay. He said, look at the gauge wire that's going from your fuse block, from your lug on the fuse for the awning and the bed, and look at the gauge wire that's coming in and leaving this relay. That's not the right relay. He tested that relay, and it turns out that one controls the macerator pump on the outdoor kitchen. Unreal. Period. 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 And so it goes. He then said, this has got to be your relay. Found another one. We swapped out that relay again just to make sure, and the relay was good. He then went to the control switches for the bed and the awning, took everything apart like I had done, ran some tests, and said, there's got to be a bad wire coming to this connection. How he figured out which wire, what to test, I'm not an electrician. I have no idea. But he knew. The next thing I knew, he was crawling underneath the rig. I said, what you doing? He said, I'm tracing this wire all the way back to your bed to find the break in this wire. He said, it's not easy because it's inside of a loom, and the loom, you know, those little plastic housings that's wrapped around wire. He says, there's probably 10 or 12 wires inside of this loom, and it's going to take a little time. But he shimmied all the way back underneath the rig from the passenger side front wheel all the way to the driver's side rear wheels, and all of a sudden he yelled out, found it. So when Thor manufactured this rig, they used loom and they wrapped it around wires. They didn't really secure the wires inside of the loom to protect them. This one wire had been rubbing against the frame probably since the day they made it, and it finally wore through. Broke the wire. He then cut out the bad piece of exposed wire or broken wire, put in a butt connector, secured it all back up inside the loom, secured the loom around the wires to protect them. He also tightened up a couple of loose ground wires that he saw underneath the rig. He came out and said, George, now we got to talk money. I said, you've been here a handful of times. You've only charged me once for coming here. I've called you on the road traveling around with issues, and you've guided me through solutions. I said, you have to charge me your going rates for service for this call. He laughed. I said, and don't forget, you've been here for 2 hours. And he charges a service call to show up at your house, and then he charges